Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alumni Chats, a weekly podcast featuring alumni from the Department of Broadcasting and Journalism here at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon. I'm the interim dean for the College of Fine Arts and Communication. I'm also the host of the podcast. Today, I'm talking with former Liz Bales, now Liz Nolte from the class of 2008. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Thanks, Buzz. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be asked to do this.
Well, you were somebody that, and we'll get into this over this period of time, that you were so involved up on the third floor of Salee Hall. And I remember as a professor asking you to come speak to our young people because I thought they need to follow her path in terms of being involved and being active. And we'll talk all about that. But it's a joy for me to be able to talk with you on the podcast. So let's get an update. What's going on in your life? Tell everybody what's going on.
Yeah, so I currently live in Rock Island, Illinois, with my partner, Ben Goujon, who's also a Western grad, MFA 2007. With my three kiddos, Ren, Elliot, and Beckett. So they range from 9, 6, and almost 2. So we're busy. But we're loving life in the Quad Cities. And I'm currently working for a nonprofit called ReNu Moline. It's a nonprofit that works closely with the city of Moline to kind of spur economic development, redevelopment, and placemaking for the downtown area.
That is awesome. And I'm sure they're glad to have you. We're going to get into how you got that job and what your responsibilities are, but we're going to rewind the clock a little bit, go back into Liz's past, and you are from the Quad Cities, which is so great that you've stayed in that area in terms of you're familiar with it and everything. But what was life like growing up for you? What were some of the influential things on young Liz?
Yeah, I say born and raised Quad Cities because I honestly have lived a little bit everywhere, from Geneseo to Port Byron, to Moline, to Sherrard, Rock Island now. So yes, this is definitely home for me. All of my family is here. But growing up here was great. The Quad Cities is a big little place. I've had the privilege to grow up in some wonderful places, and my childhood was wonderful. But yeah, so I ended kind of my I graduated from Sherrard High School, which is a very, very small town, and life there was great. We were all very, very close. I had a lot of great experiences. I was an athlete and really enjoyed doing athletics in high school and got involved in a lot of things, including Sherrard Television, which was a class that I, started taking when I was I think a junior. And that was kind of my first exposure to TV news, even though I'd always watched it growing up. The Today Show was something my family always watched. And, I think from a young age, I think I knew I wanted to be on TV and I wanted to be the next Katie Couric. So that was my dream. That's what I went after. I'm a very goal-driven person, and that's honestly where I thought I was headed. So, but I had great exposure. I had great experience all through high school. I interned with our local TV news stations. A lot of those professionals are still here today, and I still have great contacts with them. But yeah, just a lot of great exposure and a lot of fun experiences growing up in small towns.
I since I've known you this over the years, Liz, I just always thought there's a young lady has no fear or maybe great self-confidence. And I think that, part of that is probably just in part of your DNA. But was there somebody along the way that helped encourage you and you felt like always had your back and was supporting you when you were growing up that way?
Yeah, definitely my parents. My parents always encouraged me, to always do my best and to get involved and, give something a shot. I remember the first time playing soccer And I hated soccer. But they said, you started this, you finish it, you try your best, you play your hardest, and then we'll try something new. I had a lot of those experiences from playing piano to getting involved in theater. I found out what my strong suits were and were not. And I think it's to them just encouraging me to be the best that I can be and not be afraid to take chances. But you never know if you're going to really thrive in something until you try it.
So when you decided to come to WIU, I'm interested in finding out, because you were on the track team, you were a student athlete, and were you more of a student athlete, or were you were you really interested in broadcasting? What was the primary focus your freshman year?
Yeah, so coming to WIU was really double fold for me. I was recruited to run for the track team, which, coming from a very small school, getting a chance to run at D1 was huge.
Yeah.
It was an added bonus that the broadcasting department was absolutely amazing. I remember coming to the third floor for the first time and being blown away at, oh my gosh, I'm going to get all these experiences, and these professors already are calling me by my first name, and they're interested in what my passions are and are really encouraging me to take part in things. So it really was the best of both worlds. So I came to WIU on a track scholarship, but even before I came, I remember hearing about the opportunity to audition to be on the TV news broadcast for WIU. And so, before even being a freshman, I remember recording it in our little TV studio in my high school, and having my teachers there encouraging me and helping me, reading the morning announcements and submitting those. But I remember getting the notification that, I made it and I was going to be anchoring as a freshman. And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. I was so terrified, but so excited. And that was huge for me. But life as a student athlete was really, really difficult. I think anybody who's been involved in a D1 sport will know it is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And so I ran my freshman year and into my sophomore year, but decided to step away from track and field because I thought, I'm not going to be an Olympian. This is wonderful. I'm getting great experiences. I'm representing WIU in this D1 sport, but honestly, my passion lies with broadcasting, and I wasn't able to get really involved like I wanted to while running. So I had to make the difficult choice to step away from that and really just dive head into my passion area, which was broadcasting. So because of that move, I was able to get involved in just so much more. And really, that impacted even my career today in the things that I was able to do. So it was a hard decision, but something I'm really happy that I did.
And as you mentioned, you're involved with the newscast. And of course, there were other things that you started to become involved with, when you were willing to be a sideline reporter for sports. I can't tell you how happy I was, because, I felt like so often our sports people are nabbed by the news department. They were always kind of transfigured into news people, that we finally got somebody that came over to our side.
Yeah, it was great to do both. Like I said, I wanted to be involved in as much as I possibly could. And so, I think there's something unique that's the sports department has, and you just get so many more experiences, from learning how to do, sideline camera, setting up live shots, getting to be quick on your feet if you decide to do sideline reporting or play-by-play or color. You don't get those experiences anywhere else. And honestly, the most real world experience that I took away from college and, transitioned that into my professional career came from that. Learning how to shoot on the fly, learning how to write on the fly, was so beneficial and so much fun. I mean, my best memories are, spending those late nights and weekends covering the sports. I mean, we were such a great team. I have so many great memories, some of the best, but it was just so fun.
Yeah. I remember lots of times because I think you and Lindsay
Lindsay
would switch.
O'Connell, yeah.
You guys would switch off, and sometimes you'd be working the camera, and she'd be the sideline reporter. And when you weren't, you were in the truck, talking with Tom Durso and I, and so you're right. There was lots of companionship, and talk a little bit about some of the other students that you remember working with, and in news and sports.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, starting out anchoring, I remember sitting down with Mike Kirchhoff and Denise Nitka.
Oh, wow.
And they were, the older bunch. And I remember just being very intimidated because they were so good. And I hope to be like them someday. I'm still connected with Denise today. But yeah, they were influential too, encouraging me to just try my best and that I was doing really well. I remember that, but oh my gosh, so many great relationships. Nick Marone, who actually went to my high school. We were both there and broadcasting together and we're quite the team. He's an amazing photographer. Yeah. I think he's a chief photographer now. But Lindsay O'Connell, Quentin Parker, Ebony Washington. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We have so many memories and I think that really ties us back. I would love to have a reunion with everybody.
That would be great.
At some point in time. But yeah, those relationships were just so strong because I think we were a unique group because we were trying to get involved in everything we possibly could. And I'm thankful that WIU had opportunities for us to do those types of things because there are programs out there at higher ed institutions that don't have the same opportunities for students to get involved and get that real world experience.
What other classes did you enjoy and you remember, from some of the faculty?
Yeah. Don Norton obviously was one of my favorites, broadcast performance with him. Roger in broadcast law. I loved that class, but oh my gosh, Mike Murray and Sharon and your classes. I remember doing radio with you and you were so great too. And it just was not my jam. Like I couldn't do radio. I don't know what it was about it, but it's just not an area where I thrived. But I remember, having to work a couple shifts and create a little show there. Mm-hmm. But that was also really great experience. But so many great classes. All of them, were beneficial too. I remember taking some of my minor classes, then not all of them were relevant, but every single class I took there really prepared me for my career. So
what other, WIU memories or Macomb memories do you have that you, like if you got together with some of the people we've been talking about, you'd say, do you remember that we?
Yeah. So speaking of opportunities, I remember, I can't remember if I think I was a senior. But I really, like I said, I had ambitions to be the next Katie Couric. And so I wanted an opportunity to have a talk show like show. And so I remember going to Sharon and asking, can I start this show? I really want to call it the Western Wire. It's going to be a sit down and we're going to bring in guests and maybe have some cooking segments and spotlight businesses in Macomb. And I remember getting the okay and kind of rallying the troops to help me build the set. And my partner anchor, Patrick Downing, wasn't even in the broadcasting department. And I had asked him to be my co-anchor. That was so fun. We did several episodes, but it was great to have the opportunity to do that. I know we had a lot of laughs with that. Being involved in the mock election.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a wonderful experience. Talk about real world. I think that is another one that sticks out to me too, and kind of preparing you to be on your toes, and it's so well known nationally. So being involved in that was fantastic. Getting to talk about the candidates. And I think that was the first time that I really had to dig in and do research. Mm-hmm. And kind of present that and be knowledgeable for so many different things, to be able to talk about, politics on the fly. So that was a wonderful experience. I remember, trying to, as a student, I think I remember having like a week to do a package or something, which I laugh now because as a reporter, I was doing like 2 packages, 4 VOSATs, but we always tried to get out and do real world stories off of campus. to try to have that experience. And I remember finding out that Hillary Clinton was making a campaign stop in Fort Madison, Iowa, which is a ways from Western. But I remember my friend Nick Marone and I saying, well, we got to go cover it. Nobody else is going. Let's go. So I remember getting our press passes and driving all the way there, and, being a part of that press pack was a lot of fun. And, getting to see Hillary Clinton, we didn't get to interview her or anything, but, just being there, we talked to students who had actually traveled from campus to go and see her. So we had student interviews. So that was amazing. And just being involved in the student clubs and submitting things for awards too, was a whole lot of fun. We have great memories from doing those overnight travel events, getting to meet students from other schools, seeing what their work was like compared to our work,
right?
Which I always thought was better. So, but yeah, a lot of those great experiences. I think I even remember, could have been my sophomore year, there was breaking news. There was a barn fire, and I remember going, and it was a small group of us, and we were trying to do, I don't think we were trying to do a live shot, but we were trying to shoot it as if it was live. And we were there with Don Norton. And I remember the fire department coming over, and, our adrenaline is going, and we're like, so what's going on? How did this happen? And the fire department was like, oh, I don't know, somebody lit a match and lit it on fire. They were totally giving us false information. And I still have the video today, and I crack up every time. And we asked them, well, what's in the building? And they were like, dough Christmas ornaments. And we were like, okay, there's dough Christmas ornaments that are burning in this, totally false, but you get what you get. But that was definitely a learning experience. I remember nobody white balanced, so all of our video was blue, but you live, you learn.
Well, people don't understand that today, you can whip out your phone and use the camera, right, and everything is all set up and working. But we had to have tape. And we had to record on tape and transfer it over and edit it and then put it back on the tape. And
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That is definitely a skill that I am so happy that I learned. Do you still teach that? I wonder if there are stations out there that are still tape to tape. Can't be, right?
I can't imagine. But yeah, that was, just the whole process of understanding. I think it helped in terms of organization, and I think in discipline, because you had to think ahead.
Yes.
So
you definitely had to think ahead to your shots, to your questions, to your interviews. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and log, an hour of Scrabble to put back together again. Yeah, it was very strategic. And I'm so thankful I had that experience, because I will say at my first position, I had to use those skills. We were still tape to tape, and I feel like Western was fantastic at being on the cusp of new technology, of being able to get our hands on yet the old equipment and the new equipment. I'm so thankful I had that experience, because when I entered the real world, I was editing tape to tape, on beta, beta. So I'm thankful I had that experience and was able to transition at the station I worked at the time to digital. But being able to have that experience definitely gave me a leg up.
One other thing about the WIU experience that I want to point out is we had this opportunity, thanks to Sharon Evans.
Yes. Thanks for bringing this up.
To have some students apply for an opportunity to be a part of the NBC coverage of the Beijing Olympics. So yes. I think Don took a bunch of kids up to Chicago, right?
That's correct. Yeah, this experience, still blows my mind. I'm glad we saved the best for last. We went up with Don Norton. There was a large group of us, and we had the opportunity to interview to be interns at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. And I believe they had positions posted on the US side too. But yeah, that was quite the experience. So we each had about a 10 to 15 minute interview. We had to go through all of the skills that we had at the time. Did we have editing skills? Did we know how to shoot? Could we write scripts? Could we, what were our skills? but it was with the NBC team. The executives were there to interview us. And there were several other colleges that were doing this as well. I shouldn't say several, actually it was a select few. But yeah, getting that experience to actually have a first kind of interview in the real world was fabulous. We left going, oh my gosh, I don't know if we're going to make it. And I remember being very close with Lindsay O'Connell, who was my BFF, if you will. And we were like, oh my gosh, if we get it, wouldn't that be so amazing? And I'm thinking like, I want to get this. And then I want to go interview at NBC. And then I'm going to get Katie Couric's job. This is the perfect avenue. But, they were definitely looking more towards, sports geared. What was our knowledge? How could we assist? So I'm thankful that I had that experience with the sports team to be able to take that and interview with those skills. But yeah, I remember getting the phone call and a letter in the mail that I got it. I had one of the positions. I remember jumping around my living room, so excited. We had to pay some of our own way. So I remember like reaching out to family, like, help me get there. But yeah, going to Beijing. So we flew over on an NBC jet. I mean, it was the biggest airplane I'd ever been on. And we got to Beijing. There, we stayed in a village with all the other journalists and other students. I will say the hours were grueling. The Olympics are going around the clock. And so it feels like we worked 20 hours a day. But we were at the NBC headquarters, the Olympic Village, and I did everything from helping choose music for promos to, looking over scripts, to delivering scripts, to logging footage. I got to sit in on a writing session with Tom Brokaw, which was amazing.
Wow.
Getting to see how an operation really works at that level is like none other. You really see how things work and how they put things together. I was running line for their live coverage. I got to spend a majority of my time, which for me as a track athlete is awesome, at the Bird's Nest, with all of track and field. And so I got to see Mary Carrillo and Bob Costas. I mean, I was sitting feet away from them, helping cover, the live coverage of track and field, not to mention getting to see the athletes winning gold, Usain Bolt and all of the above. I was there for that. I got to run scripts for that. I got to run footage for that. I was a part of that coverage, and that experience still gives me chills today of how lucky I was to have that experience. It's something not every student gets to do. But yeah, absolutely amazing.
Well, and I think at that time, in my mind, at least, you and Lindsay deserved it because of what you had done over that period of time in your academic career. You had tried to do as much as possible in news and in sports, and making sure that you had as many skills as possible. As you said, the writing skills, the shooting skills, the editing skills, you were having all those things. And that leads us to your first job, and you head back to the Quad Cities as an MMJ, probably. Is that the...
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, I actually, when I came back from the Olympics, it was 2008, and the job market was rough in 2008. I had no idea. I had sent out some resume tapes, but I only had a few opportunities on the table. I actually applied to be a page at NBC. So when I got back from the Olympics, I actually flew to New York, interviewed to be a page there, and actually was offered a position. The downside was I was going to make minimum wage and live in Manhattan, and I couldn't have another job. So unfortunately, that didn't pan out. So I came back to the Quad Cities, and Quad Cities is home for me. I had applied to the CBS affiliate, WHBF, and they had an opening for a reporter. So I applied and got that position. So I was a one-man band reporter. I was a fill-in anchor for sports, thanks to my experience at WIU. But yeah, I spent almost 3 years doing that. And to begin with, I won't lie, it was really hard. No matter the experience that you get in college, nothing compares to the real world. So I highly, highly encourage that students get out there and intern at your local news station. That's where you're going to get the most kind of real world experience and what you're going to be doing, because, I was having to shoot with a camera that was the size of my body and edit and then be on air. And then I'd have to recut things. I'd have to be on air again. I'd have to post them to the web. There's a lot that goes into it, but I will say that, learning all those skills really propelled me to be quick on my feet, to be really good at multitasking and prioritizing time management, which is crucial. I mean, if you're, on time, you're late in the news business. Yeah. So you have to have everything done in time. But it was a challenge, I was shooting 2 packages a day, maybe 3 or 4 VOSATs. And that's a lot. That's a lot when you're doing it all by yourself. So I did that for about 3 years. In my 3rd year, I was a veteran reporter at that point in time. And I remember going in, usually you're on a 2-year contract. And so I remember going in and, really getting up the courage to go and ask for a raise. And so I sat down and I said, I'm training all of the new people here. I'm putting together all of these packages. I'm filling in for sports. I would like $1,000 raise. And I giggle now because $1,000 raise is like pennies to the dollar. And they said no. And at that time, I was barely making over minimum wage, if that. And to me, that was crushing. That was really crushing, because for me, I was working my tail off and I really wanted to stay, in the business. That's what I always wanted to do. And, it really had me second guessing. Do I really want to work every night and weekend and holiday and be on call? Can I do this the rest of my life, and make a living? And so I actually made the difficult decision to step away from TV news. That was the scariest leap I ever did, because all of my life I had been focused on being in TV news. And so much so, being so involved in broadcasting, I hadn't thought beyond what's beyond the camera. What else could I possibly do? My degree is in broadcasting. I don't even know where I fit in professionally anywhere else. There was somebody else who had left the station and started working at a nonprofit, Arrowhead Ranch. And he said, I think you'd be really good at this fundraising and communications job that we have open. You should apply and just give it a shot. And me, I'm going to give anything a shot. So I said, okay, if you think I can do it, I'll do it. And so I started working at this nonprofit where I was doing all of their communication and marketing, and started to learn about fundraising. I was updating their website. And again, I brought my storytelling skills, where I got to tell the story of the nonprofit and the impact that philanthropy had on that nonprofit. And, we saw our fundraising increase because of that. And I was like, all right, my skills, like I can still use them. I'm still getting that creative outlet of storytelling, but I'm also doing my job. And quite honestly, I've taken that to every single position I've ever had. So I think that, broadcasters are just innate storytellers. That's what we do. And it's relevant in every single field that you're in, no matter what you're doing. Even if you're not putting together stories, it's still a part of your position. So from there, I went to work for a community foundation. Community Foundation, if you're not familiar, they're a nonprofit that helps individuals and organizations with planned giving and endowments. And so that was obviously something I had no experience in, but somebody said, I think you'd be great at this job.
Just grow a little bit more.
Yeah, there were affiliate community foundations in little small towns around the Quad Cities. And so I oversaw all of those community foundations and helped tell their story to help them fundraise and, plan for the future. And I loved that job. And from there, I actually moved to another nonprofit. And then I went to work for my mentor, who had taught me everything about fundraising and planned giving, Barb Melbourne. And she said, I have this position open at Palmer and I think you'd be really good at it. Would you consider taking a look at this? And so I said, of course. I don't have any higher ed experience, but I'm willing to learn and I'm really excited about this. And so Palmer College of Chiropractic is located here in the Quad Cities. And there was an opening for a director of annual giving, which again is development and fundraising. And so I took that position and then moved up to director of alumni and annual giving. And there I got to travel all over and get to meet alumni and learn about higher education in a specific field and fundraise. And again, start telling stories. So from there, I helped build our social media. I helped tell alumni stories. We did our first graduation with a Facebook Live that I started, which was a first for the college, but I really enjoyed that. And again, those skills were very transferable. And even though I had no, prior experience with higher education or fundraising at that level, I think that, again, I go back to my Western days of having to be quick on your feet and being a quick learner. I picked it up like that and ran with it. And really, my entire professional career has been centered around, fundraising, marketing, communications, PR, is all a part of that storytelling.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you brought that out, Liz, because, part of your journey has been, this realization that at some point in time, you're like, I'm a storyteller. What do I do if I don't have that outlet? And then you find out that a lot of people appreciate those skills and need those things within their organizations, and how valuable that is to their success. And I think that's what I want young people, especially our students, to understand, that they're going to have lots of different twists and turns within their careers. And you have found some great success, and I'm so happy for that.
Yeah, thanks. I completely agree. Yeah, I really encourage students, like I said, I was tunnel focused on being in TV news that I didn't take the time to explore, well, where else could I use these skills? And I think it's something you don't think about. And when you're going into broadcasting, I am full support of go get that first job as a reporter. You will learn so much about yourself. You will build skills that are applicable for any position that you could ever take after that. And, TV news is still for some people. That passion is there. And if you're okay with living that lifestyle and living on a contract and you'd like to move often, I think that is for some people. But for those like me, I have a family, and, work-life balance is really, really important to me. Yeah. So being able to think outside the box and take those chances to try something else has been beneficial for me. And I love my career path.
So with ReNu, Moline,
yes.
Talk a little bit about, what are the joys and challenges in that job?
Yeah. So the reason I left Palmer College is that, as I spoke about, I was the director of alumni, and there was a lot of travel involved. And during the pandemic, I had my son, Beckett. And, thinking about that work-life balance, travel just wasn't in the cards for me anymore. I would have stayed there forever and a day. But again, thinking about work-life balance was just really important. And so I started looking locally for positions. This position came up with ReNu Moline. So I am the director of operations and communications, but we are a party of two here at ReNu. And so I am kind of a jack of all trades. I do everything from our operations side to HR, to PR, to fundraising, to grant writing. And again, I'm in a new field. I've never been in economic development or redevelopment at all. So it's been a whole new learning experience for me of learning how a city operates with their development and economic development, which has been a whole lot of fun and a whole new skill set as far as storytelling goes. Now I'm not necessarily telling individual stories, but I'm telling a story of the history of our city and how it's evolved. So that's been a lot of fun for me. But I am getting to tell the stories of our members. So we're a membership organization, nonprofit. And so, our budget solely relies on those businesses that, are members of our organization. And so I'm telling those stories as well. It has been a challenge because as far as operations go, that was brand new to me too. I'd done a little bit of it, duties as assigned, I say, in nonprofit world, you do a little bit of everything, even if it's not on your job description. But, I'm learning new skills. Even now at this point in my career, I'm still learning. And I think that's another skill that, broadcasters have, is we're forever learners too. We thrive for that more information. What's the next story? How do I build my skills? And so that's what I'm still doing here today.
And as you mentioned, which is, I think that I'm so happy for you as well, is that your emphasis on family, which obviously came from your growing up, that, you want to provide for your kids an opportunity for them to have probably something similar to what you experienced growing up.
You bet. Yeah. Work-life balance is just so important. And I think if the pandemic showed us anything, I think it really amplified that.
Yeah.
And so, that is just so important to me. I like to be around for my family, but, a job is a job. You can love it so much, but you also have to provide for your family. So, I just encourage to think about that, for students, think about that and what you want in life. Your goals and ambitions may be much different 5 years, 10 years from now. But yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind when you're thinking about your career. And thankfully I've had employers, and my employer now who is great in thinking about that.
So let's get to the part of the podcast where we talk about what kind of recommendations you have for students. And again, I'm thinking back to what you would tell our freshmen in that intro to broadcasting class, and about, you need to get involved, you need to start volunteering and being part of all these things. And I'm sure it's going to be something like that.
Yeah. I one of my favorite quotes is, you snooze, you lose. You really want to get involved. And I think that, getting involved right off the bat, you are going to be exposed to just so many things that are going to propel your career. So, you want to gain as much as you can before you hit the real world, because once you're out there, that's it. You're on your own. And it can be a real challenge. But you can meet that challenge head on if you have the experience. So take the chances, even if it's something you're not interested in. I think I remember talking about, trying out radio. It wasn't for me, but at least I had that experience and the understanding of how it worked and what went into it. And, don't be afraid to start something new. I really wanted to have a TV talk show, and I'm so appreciative to, the faculty that gave me the opportunity to try that out, from writing the show and staffing the show with students to building the set, having that opportunity to really learn every single aspect that goes into something like that is so beneficial. I may not be using those skills now, but they are transferable. And take the chances. That's all I'm going to say, is take the chances, get involved. Get involved in National Broadcasting Society. You're going to get to meet people and network, and you never know where those networks are going to lead for you professionally down the road. And
I would add one other thing: believe in yourself like Liz does, because I think that is part of I've always admired that in you. And I think that's a great thing. And I feel like in your story, we are just still in the early chapters. And I'm excited to find out what happens later on in the book. How's that?
Thanks. Yeah. And I think that's a testament too, is just, you never know where your career path is going to go. Not that I'm going to job hop or anything like that, nor do I encourage that, but find your passion areas. Yeah. I knew that I needed a creative outlet in any position that I took. That's just innately in me. I need that to be happy and successful in my position. So take those skills with you. Don't be afraid to apply them. And just be confident. Don't be afraid to take a loss.
Well, Liz, thanks for being on the podcast. It's great catching up with you.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to all of our weekly viewers out there. If you're interested in being a guest or want to recommend somebody, just send me an email. We want to hear from you, and we hope that you continue to watch, listen to the podcast, and really appreciate just everyone's support. So until next week, stay safe, take care, and God bless.